Right, said Fred, a name that emotes thoughts of two gym queens with aggressive hair loss. A 90s novelty act that squeezed out a couple of shiny turds to feed the human dung beetles. But what if I was to tell you that these leather-bound chrome domes are two of the most accomplished session musicians on planet Earth? Musical CVs that boast the likes of Bowie, Dylan, and Jagger, amongst others. Touring with Joy Division in the 70s and signing a major US record deal in the 80s. An incredible journey, spanning 50 years, and one that it seems the music community has failed to celebrate. So let's burst the bubble. Richard Fairbrass was born in 1953, and 3 years later, little brother Fred joins him. They were brought up in a relatively well-off family in East Grinstead, Surrey. Fred starts playing guitar aged 12, wanting to write songs, whilst Richard, now 15, is more interested in politics and exploring his life as a teenager. Over time, impressed with his brother's progress, Richard eventually decides to get a bass guitar, and they begin playing and writing together. They go through various incarnations of their band, but eventually go back to a duo and form the Actors. The summer of '78, an opportunity to go on tour with US electro-punk pioneers Suicide arises, so a friend volunteers to drive his van for them and they head off around the country, even playing a show with Joy Division in Manchester. In the early 80s, Fred starts getting work on film sets through his model girlfriend, including music videos, giving them access to a host of opportunities they could previously only have dreamed of. When he finds out that he'll be working on David Bowie's new video, knowing that he'll be using dancers or actors for his band rather than musicians, puts Richard forward to play the part of the bass player. David likes his unique look and agrees, although insists that he cuts off his ponytail. All through the assistant, of course. He doesn't talk to the extras. And there he is, with legendary mime artist Andrew Ridgeley's brother Paul behind him, miming the drums. Ridgeley did such a good job on this that the godfathers of mime, Milli Vanilli, recruited him to mime drums with them a couple of years later. Richards paid £300 for the day and subsequently chosen to appear in a further 2 videos with him. Loving the Alien. He plays a Dali-inspired stone statue with double bass here, a great video, and another £300 in the pot. And Underground from the film Labyrinth. Back in a standard 80s rock roll here, slicking back the Bobby Charlton and wearing some nice threads. He's had almost $1,000 out of Bowie now. That's $5,000 in today's money. But as cool as this is, and it is, there's absolutely no record of his alleged session work with Bowie. It does state in all of their biogs and interviews that he had a career as a top-flight session musician during this period, but he definitely didn't play on any of these singles, just an extra in the videos. The connection to Bowie leads to filming with Mick Jagger in a similar capacity. They both claim to have played with him too, but there doesn't appear to be any record of this either. It's looking as though Richard's connection to both of these legends is as an extra in their music videos. An actor if you like, but not as a musician at all. Think about that for a second. That's some exaggeration, like an extra in a Star Wars, unironically claiming to have saved the universe. But let's get back to reality. Fred's a drug dealer and selling cocaine and speed to sex workers from his taxi at nights. Although soon scores another job, this time working on an up-and-coming movie, Hearts of Fire, featuring one of his heroes, Bob Dylan, even scoring himself a role as an extra in a band. How cool is that? Having spent a couple of years watching Richard bask in the stolen valour of being Bowie's bassist, he finally gets his chance to elevate his profile and become a sweet child of mime like his brother and the Ridgeleys. All scrubbed up with a dash of eyeliner and a pirate earring, pulling his best Keith Richard moves and enjoying the moment. He looks good. But I'm not sure those chords are right. Don't tell me you taught Dylan the wrong chords, Fred. The band's a collage of everything, from voice actors from Rugrats through to members of Winger and Whitesnake. Tim Capello on drums, better known as the sax guy from Lost Boys, and our Fred. And there's Dylan, throwing a lit cigarette at the singer's hair-sprayed mane. Arrogant old prick. Then he smiles at her like a horny tortoise. She'd probably suck his old bone dry as well. I can't find any record of him having played with Dylan as mentioned in the media, and the show that he references was just a movie set with everyone miming. I'm sensing that the guys have spent so many years bending the truth about their roles as extras in these projects that without realising painted themselves into a corner as world-class instrumentalists working with legends. It's very cool for them to have been involved in these videos, so why should it matter that they never actually played a note with these artists? Well, it doesn't really. They're not stealing work from better musicians with their fake CVs, not profiting from the smoke and mirrors, and nobody cares either way and just likes them for what they are. So it's just an ego thing, an insight into their insecurities, I suppose. Something they use to convince people that they're not just a novelty act when they're feeling vulnerable. But anyway, we know from here onwards that the story as told may need some light reinterpretation. Fred apparently makes enough money from the Dylan film to relocate them to New York, where they set up the act Trash, Flash and Money with Fred's girlfriend. They say that they signed a major record contract with Capital EMI without them having even heard a single song, also mentioning that it was signed over the phone. The idea that this monster corporation would have financially committed to an act blindly is just ridiculous. This is confirmed by their claim that the deal later fell through. What likely happened is that an A&R scout with Fred's cork still visible around his nostril told them that he wanted to sign them, likely based on their horseshit resume and action movie promo shots, but later got fired, with nobody else at the label being interested. They returned to the UK feeling deflated, asking for their old jobs back and starting from scratch. Their hairlines are now on the top of their heads, so they need to reinvent themselves. Forced into the Kojak look, they now put more time into the gym to compensate. In 1989 they're joined by guitarist Ray Manzolini, and Right Said Fred is born. They write a novelty smash hit, then strike while the cheese is warm and release 2 more hits before the spotlight moves on. Before we finish, I found this video of them when they returned from a hiatus in the 2010s and thought it showcased some admirable backpedaling. These are nice guys, and their relationship's lovely. But let's take a look.
I mean, Richard, in the past you worked as a session musician for Bowie and that, and you even,
The involuntary facial contortion shows how he's grown to hate this question, wishing he'd just been honest in the beginning. Fred's also regretful of their Jackanories, but lets Richard take the lead, hoping he doesn't dig them any deeper. Notice how Richard has to take control of his face using his hand.
Featured in the Jazzin' for Blue Jean. What did you learn from David Bowie?
Well, I learned that I was never good enough to play session.
Just as Fred takes a deep breath in anticipation, Richard almost cuts off the interviewer, making a joke about finding out he wasn't good enough, but knows that he wasn't even given the opportunity. Fred's just glad that they're stepping away from the bullshit and laughs along awkwardly.
That's what I did learn. What I was good at was pouncing around. That's what I...
Richard takes the opportunity to tell the truth, whilst Fred hangs on to every word.
Good at. And we got a lot of work in the early stages, whether it's Bob Dylan or David Bowie, it doesn't matter who it was, through Fred's girlfriend at the time, who was a choral.
Shocked at how open Richard's being, his facial muscles drag his face to the left, but soon realising that he's in the middle of a confessional, decides that he might as well wait for an opportunity to spill his beans too.
Choreographer. And in those days, in the 80s, you couldn't make a video without having some kind of dancing routine in there. So we got a lot of work through Teresa in that way, because
extra work
and stuff. And
Fred's now deep in thought, thinking about whether or not they've given away too much, and Richard's running out of steam, so subtly changes the subject like a politician.
what I learnt was that if you continually run against other people, you are going to be unhappy.
Fred's in total confusion now, but just happy to sit it out.
You're always going to be. You have to run against yourself. That's the only measure of your happiness, really.
My conclusion on this is that their actual story is more endearing than the one they tell. A dealer that blags him and his brother into these amazing minor acting roles with musical icons, moving to New York and living the struggling musician lifestyle, almost signing a major record deal on the back of bullshit, then returning home, forming a pop act and becoming a household name, even writing their own hits. A story of two cheeky chappies ducking and diving to achieve major success with moderate talent. It's relatable. Instead of two session musicians, top of their game, working with the cream of the crop, signing a major deal in America but ending up more closely linked to Wigfield or Scatman John. In later years they bump into Bowie on Top of the Pops. He dismissively asks what the hell they're doing there, and Richard defensively answers, "We've got a hit record, you cheeky bugger." They also bump into Jagger in a restaurant several years back, and he snubs them, despite them saying hi, and this hurts their feelings. When you consider how many times one of the most iconic rock stars in history must have been jokingly asked if he'd employed Right Said Fred as session musicians, it's kind of understandable. I can hear it now. Oh, do fuck off, Keith.